What's up, guys? Welcome to Blue Presents a podcast where I discuss all things music. And today, we're going to switch things up and we're going to discuss about a topic I think is pretty relevant right now. But before we get there, I'm going to try something new, and I am going to let you know what I've been listening to lately. And for this week, I've got 3 songs right now I think everybody really needs to check out. The first one is from a band called Stranger Dimensions, and the song is called Dying Light. Now, this song came actually out in 2018, but recently I was watching Jared Dines video in which he posted this song up, and he posted just the breakdown, and I just heard it and thought, I gotta go listen to this. I don't know what I have to do, but I need to go listen to this song, and it's actually really awesome. So Stranger Dimensions, Dying Light, check it out. The next song is from a band called Dreamwake, who recently just had a fraudulent copyright claim on their EP, but now have gone through the process, and now it is, available for stream. So really check it out. And the song I think is probably the most badass song on the record is Silhouette. It kicks ass. It's really awesome. Really check those guys out. And my last jam of the week goes out to some good friends of mine's, Casting Shadows, who just released a single called Let Go. Check that out, man. It is a combination of, rock, metal, and a little bit of metalcore in there as well, too. It's a really good song, and it's also available on all streaming platforms. So I think these 3 songs you guys should really check out, and tell me what you think. Tell me how you feel about those songs. Alright, guys, so we're going to get to the meat and potatoes of this situation over here, and we are going to talk about why I think Warped Tour needs to come back. Now, first, I want to talk about, my first Warped Tour. My first Warped Tour was 2006, and it was with some really good friends of mine, Justin Pitts, Kyle Smith, and it was at the Jacksonville Fairgrounds in Jacksonville, Florida. This is probably that moment when you realize how much you really enjoy music and how much you enjoy seeing it live. Warped Tour just has this ability to provide such a great number of bands in such a small area, to the point where you get the schedule for the day and you literally have to look at it and say, man, this band's starting here, but in 15 minutes after this band starts, another band starts, and you really start to have to literally manage your time so you can catch a little of every band that you really came to see. And then sometimes you get a part where there isn't a band you're interested in seeing, so you kind of walk around and then wait till something catches your ear, which is one of those things that truly stands out about Warped Tour. You can find anything. I remember, if I'm not mistaken, 2008, I saw Katy Perry and Modest Yahoo and The Devil Wears Prada literally in the same show. And that's so amazing about what Warped Tour actually provides for people who like music in general, not just the latest, hottest, metalcore acts or metal acts or rock bands, punk bands, or whatever the case is. They also give you other things like hip hop. They also give you pop music. They give you reggae music. There's so many different things that I think Warped Tour actually gives to everyone. And I think that's something that needs to be brought back for those exact reasons, is because there's so many different things. But, the number of bands I remember seeing for the first time, like Say Anything or Under Oath or Emery or AFI, literally I had been a huge AFI fan for many years. A friend of mine's, Ray, turned me on to them, and I never got the chance to actually see them live. But in 2006, I got to actually see them live, and I think that's super awesome. But also, in that same year, I got to hear Protest the Hero for the first time, which blew my mind. Those guys are so technical, so amazing. The other thing I remember too is just, sometimes the Warped Tour is, the weather sometimes can get to you. And I don't know if anyone's ever been to Florida before, but that Florida heat can get you real early in the morning. But, it also can make for a really good day as well too, just to be able to relax, sit back sometimes, instead of getting in the pit or, being front row, just to sit back and actually just watch the bands and actually enjoy yourself and have a good time. And then on top of that too, it's the biggest place you can see some of your friends. You know, it's a great collection of bringing everyone together who, you know, maybe you saw last night at the show before, or maybe you haven't seen in some time, because it's that one show where literally any band from any genre might be playing that show, and even your friend who may not be the biggest metal fan or may not be the biggest punk fan or whatever the case is going to this show because it just has so much to offer for so many different people. And I think, you know, there's a feeling of excitement when it's all over, because all you can keep thinking of is, man, I can't wait to do this again. And that's how I felt every time I went to Warped Tour. Yeah, I was like hot and sweaty and dirty and, exhausted. But the first thing I kept thinking was, oh man, I can't wait to see what next year's lineup. And it literally made me become a fan of Warped Tour, the show itself, not just, you know, all the bands that are playing. You get excited when you see, you know, some of your favorite bands, you know, like Killswitch Engage or Atreyu, or even newer bands, you know, like Wage War or Day to Remember. Those type of bands get announced for those few days on Warped Tour. People get really excited. You get really happy. I remember even the day before the 2006 Warped Tour, I wanted to see Story of the Year, and I was just like, oh man, that would be so awesome. And I don't know exactly what happened or how it happened, but somehow they ended up on our day. And I just remember looking at my friend going, holy shit, I'm losing my mind right now, because literally was just talking about this band last night and how I wanted to see them and how I wish they were on the tour. And there they were. It was like amazing, you know. So you never know what type of bands will actually show up. Now, there are a few arguments here that I've seen some people say, well, it's not making as much money as it used to be. And there's some other issues, you know, I've heard everything from band beefs to, you know, some pretty gnarly situations as it pertains to, you know, people going to the show. And I think that's sad, because I feel like anytime I've ever been to Warped Tour, it's always felt like, even if I don't know you, you know, I'm looking out for people who, you know, you want everyone to have a good time. I mean, it's the same rule like when you're in the mosh pit. You know, someone falls, you pick them back up, and you don't, you make sure that you don't want them to get hurt or anything like that. And I have the same opinion about going to a show and you see something wrong happening. I'm sorry, you have to say something. You have to do something. You have to alert someone and let them know that something's going on. Now, do I think the way they put together Warped Tour is perfect? No, probably not. Personally, I think as the years have gone on, they've added way too many stages. And I get it, because there's so many bands, you know, and you have to think, you know, over the summer, literally there are like a number of bands coming from other tours, and the lineup is forever always rotating depending on what side of the country you're on and depending on the dates. But I still think, you know, there's a way to simplify that, maybe not have as many stages, but I also understand that, you know, having those many stages also gives opportunities to bands who probably don't get that opportunity. You know, there are some bands that I'm sure people have heard of, but there's also, you know, like they have a Battle of the Band stage that I think is a really cool concept. You're getting local bands that get to come and play, and it's headlined by a fairly decent act. And sometimes, you know, you walk past that stage just to see, you know, who's playing, or, hey, you know, I've been lucky enough that a few of my friends have actually been able to get to play that stage, so I'll go check their set out and go check out what they're doing. And, you know, anything to support an artist who is local. And I think that's another cool idea, but I do feel like there's way too many stages at Warped Tour sometimes. But I also see the good side of it. And, you know, sometimes it's kind of like, you know, yeah, there's too much of this, but you get why it's there. More importantly, I just think that, you know, a couple less stages, and giving some bands some opportunities who may not get them otherwise, Also the same thing, I think the spice of life is that rotating schedule. From what I understand, I think no date or no schedule or no date has the same schedule, which is really cool. And it gives you an opportunity to see bands at different times. It's not like at the end of the night, it's nothing but headlining bands, and you get a real chance to get to see other artists you may not have seen otherwise, because there are those spaces and times where you can go check out another stage. But once again, limiting the number of stages I think might be a good idea. Also, the other thing I think is really understated is look at these endorsements that come from different companies. Obviously the biggest one being Vans. Literally it's in the title of the name of Warped Tour, but you also got record labels and other things, and I think you can bring some more of those type of people onto the actual tour. And I remember the beginning, 2006, there was like midget wrestling. One year they had like BMX biking, and I think that stuff's really, really cool to see. Once again, it speaks to another reason why Warped Tour needs to come back, is it gives you so many different things within one show. Like I said, it needs to come back because it's literally providing moments that make you feel a part of something different, feel like you're in a movement where people from different parts of life, we all kind of understand each other. We all understand that we're there to listen to some great music and have a good time and enjoy every aspect that is, Vans Warped Tour. I think this really, goes back to that genuine thing that music connects people, and it connects people to understanding that we are all humans. It doesn't matter, religion, race, sex, or anything like that. I think Warped Tour is one of those great things that reminds us that there's so many different facets of life, and we can all come together and we can all have a kick-ass time when we are doing those things. So, I think it can't be understated rather, that, Warped Tour really needs to come back for these things, and for the opportunities for some bands who probably may not get the opportunity otherwise, to actually perform in front of some fans who may not have actually checked them out if it wasn't because they were walking by and, listening to on a stage. And, I think it has a good chance to come back as well, too, just because, Chris Franz from Attila seems to be all over it, and this guy seems to be a business genius. And I really think that he will probably have the tools and probably implement some of these things I'm talking about currently to kind of make Warped Tour, something, a little bit more unique, a little bit more different, and a little bit more viable, even in the financial aspect. That, some of these tours, we don't have as many tours as we used to have back in the day. The only summer tour I can really think that's still around right now is Summer Slaughter. It's probably the only thing I can think of when it comes to summer festivals. I mean, I know that there's little contingents of, other shows that are like one day in, whatever city in Los Angeles or, somewhere in New York. There's those one day shows, but there's nothing like Warped Tour where, Warped Tour is touring around the United States. And I believe they do Canada, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did Mexico. It's just one of those things. And yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think they did a UK one too, which that's cool as shit too. But like I said, I think that this is one of those really cultural events when it comes to Warped Tour that everyone can kind of come together, and enjoy this music and really say to themselves, man, this feels good and I can't wait to do it again next year. So if you guys feel how I feel, and I hope you guys do, let me know how you feel. Reach out to me on Facebook, Blue Presents Podcast.